All right, I'm going to get started. Hi, I'm Brad Rogers. I'm the Executive Director of the South Baltimore Gateway Partnership. I'm going to give a very quick briefing on the Middle Branch Resiliency Initiative. You probably are all very aware of Reimagine Middle Branch, the larger, now $200 million worth of investment to transform the Middle Branch from Baltimore's forgotten waterfront to Baltimore's next great waterfront with 11 miles of parks, trails, economic development projects, and environmental restoration. MBRI is the shoreline restoration arm of Reimagine Middle Branch, focusing on providing nature-based resiliency infrastructure that also functions as recreational and habitat benefits. There are 4 clusters of sites that we're working on right now. I should say, for those of you who weren't at the big press event 2 weeks ago, we've raised now $67 million and have about $130 million worth of grant proposals outstanding, and we'll probably be applying for another $40 million in the next 90 days. We've divided the sites for restoration, shoreline restoration, up into 4 chunks: north, south, east, and west. And the first stage I'll get back to that. We have funding in place now from a whole host of state, local, and federal agencies, including Baltimore City Department of Public Works, and have a huge network of people that are all working on this now. Doing this is really the end result of decades of policy planning. And if you think about all of our resiliency plans and all of our environmental plans and all of our redevelopment plans and all of the nuisance flood plan and all of it, you put it all together, the Green Network Sustainability Plan, you basically get this as one major outcome of all of that thinking. The first phase of work, stage 1, is going to be happening a little bit in the north and a lot on the south. To the north, we have BGE Spring Gardens campus. To the south, we have the area around Harbor Hospital. The groundbreaking ceremony we had 2 weeks ago was for the Hanover Street wetlands on the Brooklyn side of the water just south of Harbor Hospital. Here you can see Hanover Street going from left to right, north is to the left. There's a very, very eroded, very, very degraded wetland there, and we're going to be building about 10 acres of new wetland by wrapping the area in a sill and backfilling it and then vegetating it. This work is now underway, funded again by Department of Public Works and the Maryland DNR. We've begun the process of invasive species management, getting rid of the Phragmites. What you're going to see in the coming months is us building a stone sill around the perimeter. This is actually not that site, but it's a comparable site, so it's, I think, a useful example. And then we'll be backfilling that with a combination of sand and organic material, and then planting tens or hundreds of thousands of plugs of native species there. The timeline is basically that we have started construction. We're starting construction now, and we'll be done by the third quarter of 2025. That is happening and moving. To the north of there is the Harbor Hospital wetlands, which are currently in the permitting phase. We're about 60% permits. We expect to get them done by the end of the year, and then groundbreaking at the beginning of 2025. Here's Harbor Hospital. We'll basically be adding wetlands that wrap all the way around the hospital and its south parking lot. And this is what it looks like in plan view. You'll also note that there's a let's see if I can use this properly. Right now we're envisioning a vegetated berm that would wrap around the parking lot, protecting the site from storm surge. Also, that south parking lot, we've identified, and DPW has also identified the opportunity to create a major stormwater wetland down there to treat stormwater sheet flowing not just off the hospital, but down Hanover and Potee Streets. And so we're working towards having that happen as well, though that's not currently funded. Between Hanover and Potee, we have the sites that we call Patapsco Delta East and Patapsco Delta West. Patapsco Delta East on the bottom of the screen is funded. We have $5.5 million in place to restore those wetlands. We have funding applications in for Patapsco Delta West, which will be right next to the Middle Branch Fitness and Wellness Center. That's also another major opportunity to trap and treat stormwater sheet flowing down Potee Street.
Discussion about removing
So the parking lot is actually now increasingly in demand because of the fitness and wellness center. BCRP wants to be able to use it for overflow parking for large events that could be held there. But if we did put in the stormwater wetland, we might shrink the parking lot a bit. And so BG Spring Garden, this is an incredibly complicated site. You've got not only a couple $1 billion worth of utility infrastructure, but also highways and light rail and all kinds of things. And so this has been a very nuanced, complicated design process. What we are looking at now is a vegetated berm network that would wrap around on land with that again would be vegetated with native species, and then an on-land stormwater facility right here, which would collect all the water draining off from this huge stormwater outfall right here that drains a huge chunk of the peninsula. So on this map, you can see that basically we have funding in place now to do everything on the right-hand side, and we have now about $3 million in hand to do the design work for Smith Cove. Smith Cove is the southwest corner where Cherry Hill and Westport come together. This is a site where there are two major stormwater outfalls that dump stormwater from 314 acres of subwatershed, again, right into the water with no treatment. Lots of erosion, and we are designing and seeking funding now for a major stormwater and wetland facility right there. That would then include as well improvements to the Middle Branch Trail, including putting that trail up on a little bit of a knee-high berm to protect Waterview Avenue from flooding, and then that would then connect to a walkway that would get you to the One Westport development site, where you would pick up with the trail connections at currently being designed and built at One Westport. You guys might also have heard talk about North Bay Education wanting to have a Middle Branch facility. North Bay's environmental education program that most middle schoolers in Baltimore go to. They spend 5 days and 4 nights up in Cecil County. They'd like to do follow-up programming focused on green jobs and career development, and we are in conversation with them and the Parks Department about potentially that happening right here as well. Then this wetland would become a training opportunity. 314 acres, of which 145 are impervious. It goes all the way through to Mount Winans and Lakeland, and yeah, the cemetery, all of that. And this actually, if we've applied with the city for a major regional grant, the NOAA Regional Climate Resiliency Challenge, and where we're seeking $70 million in total to fund projects in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and Howard County. And if we got that, this site would be one of the beneficiaries, as well as a resiliency plan for Fells Point. So trying to be very quick about everything, that is the highlight of things. Obviously, it all gets more rich and interesting the more questions you ask, so I want to leave some time for you to ask any questions you have.
So real quickly, what are your metrics for success here? What have you said, okay, we will know we've been successful doing this when?
Right. Well, I would say first of all, I think that it is realistic for us to expect that if we keep going and there's not some huge change like an economic crisis or a constitutional crisis or something like that, that we could end up over the next 5 years teeing up $200 million worth of shoreline restoration. And I think that if we are able to get anywhere close to that, that is manifestly a success. Honestly, if we're able to, just completing what we've done is a big deal and very exciting. But I would like to see that first, to be able to build resiliency infrastructure at that scale. Second, to make sure that there's high quality public access along the way, which is why we're now applying for tons of money for trail enhancements to make sure that the public can use the Middle Branch Trail to get to these wetlands. That's also part of why the One Westport Development Project has that huge park initiative as part of it. And then the third is that while it's not a metric, I would like to really begin to reset the market expectations of what South Baltimore has to offer and see that reflected in housing values and vacancy rates and the desirability of those neighborhoods.
Those are all, excellent metrics. How about from an environmental standpoint? What kind of water quality testing are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Flooding, how are you measuring?
Great question. So you can calculate by formula the nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment reductions proposed for each of these that are expected for each of these sites. And we have a whole science and technical advisory committee where we have researchers now doing before, during, and after testing on. So, for example, one of our grants that we got, we included $100,000 for graduate students from the UMBC Eye Care program, which has underrepresented people. Brings underrepresented people into environmental sciences. There's a whole graduate school education of a researcher who will be conducting fish surveys before, and then another person will be doing it after, so that we can see whether we're improving the viability of the fish population. So we have a bunch of stuff like that happening.
I mean, obviously, this could be kind of a benchmark example for restoration of urban watersheds.
Yeah, I think we're really becoming, if we can do this, Baltimore will really be the gold standard for that nationwide. And if we can, and especially, but not limited to, if we get this regional grant, which then it kind of expands the dimensions of it.
Other questions?
I have one. Does the Under Armour site, will that have a trail? It doesn't have a trail now.
It does not currently have a trail. So I'm not working as closely with the Under Armour. Ethan Cohen has been talking with the Under Armour folks. I think that I would like for us to all work together to ensure that there's one continuous waterfront pedestrian access wrapping all the way around the waterfront there. And it currently is, they have trails planned, but they are, and maybe even being built currently, but I don't know what their balance of private use and public use is intended to be.
Other questions?
I can tell you that if I bought a house nearby, I would be walking on it, regardless of what their intent was.
Any other questions for Brad?
Yeah.
So this all looks
Mhm.
great, really exciting stuff. To what extent, you talked about this a little bit at the Patapsco Delta in the south area, and I'm thinking particularly about the Gwynns Falls in the north. But to what extent is this intended to mitigate pollution from upstream, or is there concern that it would be undermined by pollution from upstream?
Great question. So all of this is designed will have the effect of improving water quality and improving habitat and improving environmental conditions. In some cases, even encapsulating sediments that might have stuff buried underneath them. So the net environmental impact is high and positive. And we're trying to design these to be as resilient as possible so that they, as sea level rises or storms, change, that they are adaptive to that. And we also are planning, each one of these will have an endowment associated with them so that we'll have perpetual money for long-term stewardship to go out there and remove invasives and pick up trash and perform routine maintenance in perpetuity in a long-term stewardship arrangement.
Thank you very much for your presentation and, more importantly, for your enthusiastic engagement in doing this. This is great work.
Fun stuff. It's really exciting.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Brad.